Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, feeling the impact of the shutdown in the friendly skies. 1 week into the government shutdown, air traffic controllers considered essential workers clocking in without pay are calling in sick, causing delays and cancellations across the country.
Clearance is closed, ground's closed, local's closed, the tower is closed due to staffing.
I'm Gio Benitez here at Newark Airport. At least 8 different air traffic control centers are already being affected by this government shutdown, why it could mean delays and cancellations.
Meanwhile, today the president suggested some of the 750,000 federal workers furloughed without paychecks may not get back pay at all, arguing some employees don't deserve to be taken care of.
I'm Rachel Scott here at the White House with a look at what that could mean for the negotiations between Democrats and Republicans that are at a standstill.
National Guard troops arrive in Chicago. The move labeled a military-style invasion by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. This as President Trump threatens the use of the Insurrection Act if necessary and if, quote, governors or mayors were holding us up. What is the Insurrection Act and when can it be invoked? Gaza ceasefire talks make progress on day 2 of the negotiations. Today marks the 2-year anniversary since Hamas's attack on Israel, when 1,200 people were killed and more than 250 taken hostage. We look at the war that has raged on since and talk to the people whose lives have been irreversibly changed.
Peace doesn't have to be rainbows and unicorns and we're all best friends. I think peace can mean a halt to the agony and suffering and pain.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. It is a busy Tuesday night, and with the government now shut down for a week, we begin with the increasing impacts, including with air travel. Tonight, the FAA is warning of staffing issues at 8 major air traffic control centers from Newark to Nashville to Burbank. Some air traffic controllers who are working without pay are now calling in sick. Nashville's tower has extremely limited staff. Some of its traffic is now being handled by controllers in Memphis, leading to 2-hour delays today. Overnight, the airport in Burbank, California, forced to close its tower for nearly 6 hours because it had no staff. Controllers in San Diego had to take over. Are both sides any closer to a deal? We're standing by to hear from a senator, and our team is covering it all. We begin with Gio Benitez from Newark.
Tonight, just a week into this government shutdown, the disruption to air travel is growing. The FAA now warning of staff shortages at least 8 major air traffic control facilities, threatening cancellations and delays across the country. From Las Vegas to Chicago, Dallas and Houston to Boston, Newark, Atlanta and Nashville, air traffic controllers are working without pay and now calling out sick.
It's closed, everything in the tower is closed.
Last night, the airport in Burbank, California, was forced to close its tower for nearly 6 hours because it had no staff. Controllers in San Diego were able to take over air traffic control, but flights were delayed for hours.
Is it because of the shutdown that you guys are going? It's for staffing.
Air traffic controllers are considered essential workers, and they don't get back pay until a shutdown is over. They're already facing extreme staffing shortages and problems with outdated equipment. Tonight, the union telling us the situation is not a coordinated sick-out. It's urging members to report for work, but says these air traffic controllers have bills to pay too.
We work evening shifts. We work midnight shifts. We have single parents. And when you're not even able to afford the childcare, those are going to be the very difficult decisions that are made.
Quite a dilemma. And Gio Benitez joins us now. Gio, you're already seeing flight delays tonight?
We are, Lindsay. In fact, we're looking at delays already at some airports of over 2 hours, right? So this could get growing depending on what happens here. But this is exactly what we saw during the last major shutdown. And now we're seeing it again, right? Air traffic controllers calling out sick. If this goes on, this situation could get a lot worse, Lindsay.
All right. Nobody wants to see that. Gio Benitez, our thanks to you. Meanwhile, tonight, with the government shut down, the new threat from President Trump suggesting some of the 750,000 furloughed government workers may not get paid for lost time. This as members of Congress are still getting paid. Rachel Scott reports from the White House.
Tonight, a new threat out of the White House. President Trump suggesting some of the 750,000 federal workers now furloughed without paychecks may not get back pay when the government reopens, even though that is the law.
I would say it depends on who we're talking about. But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way.
The idea of the president deciding who will and who won't get back pay, a new fear for many federal workers. James Jones is a veteran who is now furloughed from his job as a maintenance mechanic in the National Park Service in North Carolina.
If we don't get back pay, that's going to be devastating for a lot of folks, a lot of federal employees, because they're going to, they depend on that back pay money to catch up on their bills.
President Trump would not say which workers stand to lose that money.
Why do you say some federal workers should not get their back pay? Why do you say some?
Well, you're going to have to figure that out, okay? Ask the Democrats that question.
And Democrats say what the president is proposing defies a law he signed himself.
The law is clear. Every single furloughed federal employee is entitled to back pay. Period. Full stop.
And even some Republicans tonight calling it, quote, a strategic mistake.
There's a lot of good, hardworking people out there. It's just, I don't think that is helpful discussion right now. Let's get out of the shutdown.
So many with that same mindset. Rachel Scott joins us now from the White House. Hey, Rachel, as we pointed out, Congress is still getting paid, but there's still no compromise in sight.
Yeah, lawmakers are still getting their paychecks, Lindsay, but as of now, it doesn't even appear that these two sides are talking. In fact, Democratic leaders insisting tonight that the White House has gone radio silent. Meanwhile, there is news on another group of people who could be impacted by this shutdown. There's some 6 million families that rely on the nutritional program called WIC. The White House saying that they are going to be redirecting revenue from the tariffs to keep that program running, but they did not provide any additional details on when that would happen, how soon the states could receive that funding. And tonight, the WIC Association saying that there is no substitute for Congress doing its job in ending this shutdown, Lindsay.
Rachel Scott for us. Thanks so much, Rachel. Now to the fireworks on Capitol Hill. Attorney General Pam Bondi sparring with Democratic senators over the prosecution of President Trump's foes, including former FBI Director James Comey and over the Epstein files. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas reports.
Tonight, a defiant Attorney General Pam Bondi repeatedly clashing with Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee, who accused her of allowing President Trump to weaponize the Justice Department.
What was once the Department of Justice has become the Department of Revenge and Corruption.
Bondi challenged on her move to prosecute former FBI Director James Comey, just 6 days after President Trump publicly urged her to do so, posting, "Nothing is being done, and we can't delay any longer."
I'd like to know from you what conversations you've had with President Trump about the indictment of James Comey.
Senator, I am not going to discuss any conversations I have or have not had with the President of the United States. Did you see that?
Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal showing a picture of Bondi at the White House the night before Comey was indicted.
That's a great
picture. Was James Comey discussed at that dinner?
I love that picture. That's a great picture, and there were a lot of people there that night.
The Attorney General also refusing to explain why the Justice Department closed its investigation into a close Trump aide. Border czar Tom Homan, who allegedly accepted a bag stuffed with $50,000 in cash in 2024 as part of an FBI bribery sting, and transaction allegedly caught on tape.
Is there a tape that has audio and video of the transfer of the $50,000?
You would have to talk to Director Patel about that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know the answer, Senator.
Yet you do know the answer to that.
Don't call me a liar.
I didn't call you a liar.
Bondi declining to say what happened to the $50,000 in cash or whether Homan even took the money.
General,
do you know?
I said that.
Do you know sitting here whether
all
he took
I
the money?
know is that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel said there was no case.
The Attorney General also grilled about the Justice Department's refusal to hand over all its files and to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and whether the president himself was named in the files.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this.
But as Democrats demanded answers, Republicans heaping on the praise.
Our families are safer because you are returning the Department of Justice to its core function, which is enforcing the law and locking up bad guys.
Pierre Thomas joins us now from Washington. Pierre, what is the White House saying about Bondi's performance today?
Well, they're said to be pleased with the AG's performance, and this as former FBI Director James Comey and Trump nemesis is due in court tomorrow morning to face arraignment on charges of lying to Congress and obstruction, Lindsay.
Pierre Thomas from the Hill for us. Thanks so much, Pierre.
Pleasure.
And we are joined now by Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon. Thank you so much for joining us, Senator. We'll get to the shutdown in a moment. But first, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem arrived in Portland today. This, of course, comes as the Trump administration's move to deploy National Guard was blocked. He may now invoke the Insurrection Act. Have you had any personal dialogue with the administration about the plans to deploy the National Guard?
No, we have not gotten the phone calls returned. And even the governor has often gotten information very late after it's happened. So there's no cooperation with local officials. And be very clear, the federalization of the National Guard has to meet a test, and that is there an invasion? Is there a rebellion? And a rebellion is an organized, sizable, armed threat against the government. Well, there is absolutely nothing like that, and that's why the district court said you can't federalize, you can't bring them in, and it's a very similar test for the Insurrection Act, which would be an incredible line to cross to send military into our cities.
Let's talk about the shutdown now. The message from Republicans we've spoken to all week continues to be Republicans voted for clean continuing resolutions time and time again during the Biden presidency, and Democrats did back in March. They want Democrats to vote to open the government, then negotiate over Affordable Care Act cuts. What's the hesitation in doing that?
Actually, what the Republicans voted for when the Democrats were in charge were a bipartisan continuing resolution, carefully negotiated over many months of effort, addressing concerns of both parties. This has instead been a Republicans our way or the highway. Absolute refusal to engage. Well, this is day 18 of the Republicans in the House not even bothering to come to Washington, D.C. They're like, we so much don't want to negotiate. We don't want to be found in the same city. This is the attitude of absolute refusal to work together to address this major Republican shutdown over their savaging health care for millions of Americans.
Both sides are playing the political blame game with the shutdown. Today, President Trump suggested furloughed workers may not get back pay. Congress passed a law after the 2018 shutdown to ensure that they do get pay. But as you know, many are relying on those paychecks for essentials. What's your message to them tonight?
Well, it's terrible what the Republicans are doing to the nation. First of all, they got the health care, and then the president says, the law says you'll still be paid if you're furloughed, but, well, you know what? We may not pay you anyway. This is lawlessness. I mean, 4 days ago, the Office of Management and Budget was citing that people would be paid. It was up on the website of the Speaker of the House. Every article, every lawyer, everyone understood the 2019 law was in effect. That law was signed by President Trump. His commentary that he can decide who was paid and not paid is his way of threatening workers. And remember what the strategy was that Russell Vought, who is now head of OMB, talked about when he was developing the plan for this administration. He said, I want to traumatize federal workers. I want them not because they are viewed as villains. Well, this is the traumatization of workers, just as Russell Vought promised. It is a horrendous assault on the hardworking people of the United States.
Small regional airports are going to lose funding starting on Sunday. That could impact dozens of small Oregon communities. Republicans, as you know, control every lever of government. Even with these increasing impacts, are you and Democrats still planning to continue holding firm?
We are going to fight for the American people because since the president came in and in inauguration, he had all those billionaires standing behind him. It's been a families lose, billionaires win agenda. Well, that agenda may be fine for the billionaires. They got a massive tax break. But the Republicans cut health care to fund tax breaks for billionaires. They cut child nutrition to fund tax breaks, and they added $30 trillion, an estimated $30 trillion to the national debt over the next 30 years to fund tax breaks for billionaires. If you want a billionaire's agenda, the Republicans have it for you. But we are fighting for the American people, for their health care, and people are going to start getting their notices. Some already getting them of the increases for next year. On many insurance policies, it's going to be well into the double digits. And on insurance policies bought on the exchange, it's expected to average a doubling of cost across the country because of the tax credits that were taken away by the Republicans. It turns out they like tax credits for the billionaires, but they took them away for ordinary working people.
Senator Merkley, we thank you so much for your time and insight. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Lindsay. Thanks.
And we head now overseas. It's been 2 years since the October 7th attack by Hamas, and tonight high-stakes peace talks continue in Egypt. What's now being expected for tomorrow, and we'll hear in a bit from the mother of a now-deceased Israeli hostage, as well as the co-founder of the Gaza Soup Kitchen. But first, here's our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, in Tel Aviv.
Real hope tonight, 2 years after Hamas' deadly attack on Israel, as peace talks ramp up in Egypt. Top officials from the US, Qatar, Turkey and Israel set to join tomorrow as momentum grows for a deal to end the war and bring all the remaining hostages home. Israel today pausing to mark the moment Hamas attacked, killing 1,200 people, taking 251 more hostage.
On the morning of October 7th, 2023, thousands of Hamas militants stormed across the border into Israel, many of them coming here where there was a music festival taking place. At the sound of gunfire, panic and terror spread through the crowds as they tried to escape as a gunman opened fire.
Tal Haimi died defending his kibbutz, his body still being held by Hamas in Gaza. Tonight, his cousin Udi praising President Trump's push for peace.
Has President Trump's direct involvement in this made a difference?
This would not have happened. This wouldn't have happened without the direct involvement of President Trump. I have no doubt in my mind.
Our team on the ground in Gaza, where 2 years of bloody war have left over 67,000 dead, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Ahmed Temraz skeptical a deal can be reached, saying Gaza is a graveyard for the living. Our lives are not a toy in your hands. It's enough.
Ian Pannell joins us now from Tel Aviv. Ian, who did the president meet with today at the White House?
Yeah, we met with freed American hostage Idan Alexander and the family of Omer Neutra. His body is amongst those still being held by Hamas. Remember, we think they've got around 48 hostages, 20 of whom are alive, the rest are dead. President Trump also saying tonight that he thinks, he said this before, he's saying it again, that we're very close to making a deal that's going to bring peace to the Middle East. Lindsay?
And Ian, on this second anniversary, you've traveled to many war zones. Reflect, if you will, just how Gaza has been different.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, you know, the attack on October 7th is something that entirely shocked the nation here. And you could feel it again today. Very emotional, powerful scenes, people hugging, people crying, people remembering, but people desperate for an end to this long-living nightmare. And for Gazans, too, they can't stress enough that they are in a living hell, and anything that brings an end to it is going to be welcomed. Lindsay?
We can imagine. Ian Pannell reporting from Tel Aviv for us. Thanks so much, Ian. The charges against former NFL star quarterback Mark Sanchez could get more serious. The prosecutor is arguing that Sanchez was the clear aggressor in an altercation with a 69-year-old. Matt Rivers is on the scene in Indianapolis.
Prosecutors telling ABC News tonight they are not ruling out upgrading more charges against former New York Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez. The lead prosecutor, Ryan Mears, telling me video evidence determined Sanchez, who's now charged with a felony, was the clear aggressor when he attacked 69-year-old Perry Toll over parking. Toll, a delivery truck driver, was in the middle of his shift when Sanchez approached.
The confrontation doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. Aggravated battery is even a more serious charge or crime that could potentially be at play here.
The altercation happening right there. Police saying Sanchez attacked the delivery driver. The driver then responding, they say, in self-defense, using pepper spray, even stabbing Sanchez several times. Bleeding, he then takes off down that alleyway. Around 12:30 a.m. Saturday, Sanchez, now a Fox Sports analyst, is seen here bloodied in surveillance video obtained by the New York Post. The former NFL star clutching his chest, stumbling. Toll telling police he thought Sanchez was, quote, trying to kill me.
My client was just the victim of an unprovoked, senseless attack.
Toll's severe injuries seen here in this hospital photo obtained by ABC affiliate WRTV.
Brutal picture there. Our thanks to Matt. Police in Louisiana have released new surveillance video from a deadly car crash that led to the arrest of former LSU college football standout Kyren Lacy. The football player was still facing charges from that crash when authorities say he got into a police chase in Houston in April, crashed his car, and then died by suicide from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. ABC's Ika Jachi has the details.
Charger swerves back in, and cut somebody else off.
Tonight, the Louisiana State Police releasing an 11-minute critical incident video aiming to shore up their controversial case against Kyren Lacy, the former LSU football star wide receiver who was facing serious charges in connection with a fatal December 2024 crash that killed one person. Lacy died by suicide earlier this year. In the newly released evidence, Louisiana State Police acknowledged that Lacy's car did not physically collide with the crash vehicles, but argues that his actions forced other drivers into evasive maneuvers, leading to a head-on collision that killed 78-year-old Herman Hall.
You said something about a green Charger. Who told you something about a green Charger? Their findings after.
But Lacy's attorney, Matt Ory, spoke to local Louisiana affiliate HTV10 and said the state got it wrong, pointing to surveillance video and the detailed crash report that shows Lacy's Charger was nowhere near the cars that collided.
At the time of impact, he's 72.6 yards behind the vehicles at the time of impact. Keyword, behind the vehicles. That is not how this story was ever painted.
Ory also highlights new police body camera footage in which he says an officer appears to guide a witness into blaming Lacy.
Just make sure you add in there that you had to slam on your brakes, and the brakes, you had to slam on the brakes to avoid that Charger, and the brakes locked up to avoid that Charger.
Ika Jachi joins us now here on set. Give us a sense of what Kyren's family wants at this point.
Yeah, Lindsay, right now, Kyren Lacy's family, they're calling for justice. They want truth and transparency into this investigation. And they're also calling for an independent investigation into the responding officers that night. Now, along with his family, Lacy's former LSU teammates, as well as community members, they're calling on policymakers to essentially adopt new laws to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. Specifically, pointing to a proposal called Lacy's Law, which is supposed to increase police accountability. Now, if you look at the state's Attorney General's office, she has also indicated an independent investigation into this matter, which means that every single witness will have to be re-interviewed. Every single piece of video will have to be looked at again just to make sure those responding officers were acting in a just manner, Lindsay.
So we could see some change as a result of this.
Correct.
All right, Ike, our thanks to you. The Supreme Court started hearing arguments today on whether states can ban conversion therapy for minors. Justices are taking up a case where a therapist says a law banning the practice in Colorado violates free speech. The therapist claims that the law bars mental health professionals from seeking to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. Justices are debating whether the therapy causes harm to minors. A decision from the High Court is expected in June. Most of the 200 hikers that were trapped on Mount Everest have been rescued, according to Chinese officials. A final group of about 10 hikers are being accompanied by rescue workers taken to a rendezvous point with heat and oxygen. Originally, nearly 1,000 hikers were stranded Friday after a sudden blizzard. Those rescued say that they are grateful for the tireless efforts of the rescue teams. And coming up, continuing our coverage of the second anniversary of Hamas's attack on Israel, we'll hear from the mother of a now deceased Israeli hostage, as well as the co-founder of the Gaza Soup Kitchen, and the meals from HelloFresh that could be tainted by listeria. What you should be on the lookout for. 2 years ago today, thousands of Hamas militants, after neutralizing Israel's defenses, streamed over the border from Gaza and abducted 251 people. Today, just 48 hostages remain in Gaza. Only about 20 are believed to be alive. Goldberg-Polin was one of those Israelis abducted, surviving nearly 11 months at the hands of his captors, even after losing part of his left arm on October 7th when he attempted to throw a Hamas grenade out of the shelter he was hiding in. We're fortunate now to be joined by his mother, Rachel Goldberg-Polin. Rachel, it's so good to have you back on the show, and it never goes without saying that you continue to have our condolences on the loss of Hirsch. As you do each day, we see that you're wearing a number on your shirt. Today, it's 732, the number of days hostages have been held in Gaza. Peace talks, as you know, are ongoing in Egypt, but bombs continue to fall on Gaza. Do you still trust Prime Minister Netanyahu will be able to bring those remaining hostages home?
You know, Lindsay, first of all, thank you again, and to the entire ABC family for always embracing us. All of the hostage families are so grateful to you. We right now, the hostage families, are feeling immense optimism, hope, and we are very much yearning for President Trump to continue his steadfast, tireless, passionate, committed, unwavering attempts and efforts to bring this to a close. We know right now that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are in the region working on this. And we just today, actually, the hostage families received a very passionate letter from President Trump restating his commitment to us, to getting all 48 of these hostages home.
Let's talk about Hirsch for a moment, your firstborn child, your only son. What message do you think that he might have for his fellow citizens on the second anniversary of October 7th?
Well, you know, Hirsch was young and idealistic and not yet jaded, as unfortunately I think many of us become the more that we see how the world often leans. Hirsch was an expert listener, which I didn't realize was a unique and really profound trait. And he was always curious to listen to people, especially people he didn't agree with, people who didn't share his philosophies or worldviews. I know that he was always hoping for better, believing better could be, and being idealistic and going toward that light. And I pray that we can do that.
Whether it's 5 years, 10 years from now, what do you wish for your homeland of Israel? And is there a way to live in peace with Palestinians?
You know, I think that what's so tragic is that in this situation, we have become very triggered by the word peace. And I think that peace doesn't have to be rainbows and unicorns and we're all best friends. I think peace can mean a halt to the agony and suffering and pain, and figuring out how do you live near people that maybe don't have an interest in being your best friend, and you don't have an interest in being their best friend, and you can still respect their right to liberty and freedom of movement and a just way of moving forward. And I believe that there are people on both sides who want that.
Lastly, I want to go back to Hirsch again. What do you think that he would want for you to do for the rest of your life to honor his memory, his legacy, and that of so many others?
That's a wonderful question. I often say to myself, and I'm in conversation with him throughout the day. You know, I happen to be a religious person, so I'm praying a lot each day. There's a prayer that Jewish people say upon waking, many Jewish people say, and I say that prayer, and then I say to Hirsch, sweet boy, let me feel your light and your love. No more pain, just love. I have to believe that he loves me, and I have to stay strong, and I have to survive for it, part of his legacy.
Such a touching and meaningful conversation, Rachel. We always appreciate your insights. Thank you so much. Our condolences again for the loss of your son, Hirsch.
Anything. Thank you, Lindsay.
And of course, in the 2 years since those brutal attacks, Israel and Hamas have waged a deadly war that has absolutely devastated Gaza. The Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health says at least 67,000 people have been killed there in that time. Among that number, thousands of women and children, all while those still living experience a humanitarian crisis, a lack of food and basic resources. Israeli airstrikes have been reported in Gaza even today. Hani al-Madhoun has experienced the grief of this war on a personal level, and while providing aid to Gazans, Hani started the Gaza Soup Kitchen with his brother Mahmoud, who was killed last year. He's the co-founder of the Gaza Soup Kitchen and has been involved in efforts to provide aid for Gaza. He has personally seen members of his own extended family killed including his brother and Gaza Soup Kitchen co-founder Mahmoud. Hani, we thank you so much for joining us, and our condolences for the loss of your brother and all of your family members. What can you tell us about life in Gaza right now as your family and friends there are experiencing it today?
Well, great to be with you again. Thank you for having me. Look, things are very difficult in Gaza City, especially. Supplies for food are dwindling, water is running low, and the community is really looking for food. A few families are sheltering inside the hospital. We got some meals to them today, basically some bread, and we felt like a big achievement. Unfortunately, the people who remain in Gaza City continue to face crisis, not just the bombs and the destruction, but also the food insecurities. My parents remain in the front line serving soup, water, even produce if we can get it, because this is important.
We've reported in the past extensively on the aid workers who have been killed and the dangers that Gazans face trying to get food. What's the situation like there for aid workers and those who are still trying to get aid?
Well, the Palestinians in Gaza have not seen a lot of aid being allowed in. What is happening is the Israeli army allows mostly commercial trucks to be sold, meaning stuff for the supermarket shelves. So that's what's been allowed. A lot of the aid has been denied for a number of reasons. And that's unfortunate because the Palestinians are not getting the help they need because, hey, you could buy stuff at the store.
How optimistic are you that a ceasefire deal will be achieved?
We are realists as Palestinians, but we never leave hope because that's the only thing we control. I do think this is the best. The reports I'm reading have been encouraging. There is some agreements already about the first phase, but let's be honest, we need a durable ceasefire. We do not want to have a break for a day and then go back to another nightmare. Gaza suffered enough. More than 70% of the homes are gone. A lot of people need medical aid. They're not getting that.
We just heard from Rachel Goldberg-Polin, whose son Hirsch was abducted in the October 7th attacks and eventually killed. We asked her about her hopes for a future in Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace. Do you have the similar goal?
Absolutely. One of those days I'll buy them coffee if they ever come to DC. This is a fellow American family that have struggled like my own family. I have been in touch actually with this family in one occasion at least, and I wish them well. I applaud their courage and moral clarity. The reality is I'm just tired because if, she has the luxury now to talk about this, but my family is in the front line. I worry that my last remaining brother in Gaza would be targeted just because he's getting bred to a hospital.
We never had the pleasure of meeting your family, your brother Mahmoud. Tell us about him. What made him smile? What makes you smile when you think about him?
His kids. He has 7 kids. The youngest is 10 months old. She was born and he was debating what to name her, and then an Israeli drone killed him. What gives me hope and what makes me smile is how innovative he was to help the community. The work we're doing is hard. It puts our family in the front line of danger, but that's the legacy that our family, that's the role we're playing in this nightmare in Gaza. He meant well to the world. I want this nightmare to end because we have not grieved, because we worry that there is another nightmare around the corner. My 2 little girls here went already to two memorial services for 2 of their uncles and some of their nephews and nieces. I hope this is it. I hope this brings an end to this.
Hani Al-Madhoun, we thank you once again for coming back on the show. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, President Trump has threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act. We'll have a constitutional scholar break down what the law actually says and the legal issues about putting the U.S. military on American streets. And investors are racing to buy gold futures, now selling at an all-time high. What it says about investors' worries about the economy. Welcome back, everyone. President Trump says he would consider invoking the Insurrection Act that would allow troops to be deployed in cities with or without the consent of local officials. This is the White House's attempts to deploy the National Guard across the country have been met with legal challenges. We'll take a look at how the insurrection law actually works in a moment. But first, let's break down these attempted deployments by the numbers. So far, President Trump has deployed or called to deploy troops to 5 cities in his term. The first came 4 months ago when troops were sent to Los Angeles amid major ICE protests. Meanwhile, 2,200 troops from various states are still in Washington, D.C. after being deployed in August. 200 Texas National Guard troops arrived today in Illinois after a judge declined to block the deployment of troops. However, deployment was blocked in Portland, Oregon, where 200 California National Guardsmen had just arrived and are on standby. The Insurrection Act that President Trump has considered using for troops deployment has been around since 1807, but it has not been implemented since 1992 during the Los Angeles riots. The Insurrection Act authorizes the U.S. president to deploy military forces within the United States to suppress rebellion, domestic violence, or to enforce federal law in certain circumstances. To help us understand more about how this act works, we welcome James Sample, professor at Hofstra Law School and an ABC News contributor. Thank you so much for coming back again. So let's just start off with the basics. When is the Insurrection Act intended to be invoked?
The Insurrection Act is intended to be invoked only extraordinarily rarely. It is very broadly and ambiguously written. It gives the president, no matter who the president is, a lot of power. You might argue that the Insurrection Act is dangerous in the hands of any president, whether you like the president or not. It authorizes the authorization of the domestic use of the military in civilian affairs, so civilian law enforcement, in 3 situations. If the governor or legislature of a state requests it because they need to suppress an insurrection, or if the president wants to invoke the Insurrection Act without state consent, he can do so if it is impossible to enforce federal law through normal means, which is the argument that the president is advancing, at least somewhat tentatively so far. And then finally, in a third situation, if it is impossible to enforce federal law because the state is standing in the way of enforcement.
So give us a sense historically of when this has been invoked properly.
It certainly was the last time, as your piece indicated, it was invoked in 1992, about 33 years ago, was the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles. And that was at the request of California gubernatorial officials and other officials in the state of California. This has been invoked a few times in instances where you might say they were certainly with salutary effects. So the civil rights era in the 50s and the 60s, it was part of the effort to integrate the schools, for example. You needed the federal military force to make that kind of thing happen. But this is a very, very rare scenario.
Is it legal for the president to use the U.S. military against American citizens?
Well, last week you heard him in his address to the troops refer to American citizens as the enemy within. There has been, as much as there are technical legal aspects of the Insurrection Act and the Posse Comitatus Act, which is a statutory prohibition on the use of military officials for civilian law enforcement purposes, the Insurrection Act is an exception to that Posse Comitatus Act. If you think about the classic Western films where the sheriff of the county, the lawman, if you will, gets a posse. It is the posse of that county that goes to, pursue the unlawful individuals. That is the purpose of a Posse Comitatus, but the Posse Comitatus Act prevents the military from being used in that particular way.
Explain for us the difference between the Insurrection Act and martial law.
Martial law, there is actually no constitutional basis for martial law in the United States of America, and the Insurrection Act does not allow for martial law. Martial law is where the military replaces civilian law enforcement as opposed to assisting civilian law enforcement.
James Sample, always appreciate your explanations and insight. Thank you so much. Coming up, LeBron James hinted at a second decision to be announced today, but it might not be what you expected. And she's a comedian, actress, talk show host, and now children's book author. Sherri Shepard tells us about her new book, The Sunshine Queens. Fans of LeBron James expecting an announcement about his NBA future got an ad campaign instead. Some subscribers to HelloFresh meals are being warned of food tainted by listeria and the valuable shipment of sneakers allegedly stolen off of a train. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. The USDA is warning consumers that some HelloFresh meal kits contain spinach tainted with listeria. The agency says consumers should discard any affected packages of pulled pork, pepper, pasta, and the unstuffed peppers with turkey meat that was sent directly to subscribers. The company said that they have notified customers who may have received those meals. LeBron James is used to juking out his opponents on the court, but this week pulled a fast one on millions of fans, teasing a, quote, second decision, a reference to his first decision when he chose to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers and take his talents to South Beach to play for the Miami Heat. This time, fans were commenting on his post, teasing the announcement, some pleading with him not to retire. But earlier today, it was revealed the tease was part of an ad campaign for Hennessy Cognac. Tourists managed to escape an angry elephant while on a safari in Botswana. In the video clip, an elephant protecting its herd young calves charged at the group and flips their canoe. Jeff Melvin and Larry Unrain say that they escaped with the help of their guides, but moments later, the elephant, which could have weighed up to 5 tons, trampled another tourist who was lucky to survive.
What we did not see was the mom with the 2 babies. They were hidden in some tall grass, but out of sight.
3 American scientists were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for their work on subatomic quantum tunneling. Their research laid the groundwork for faster cell phones and computers and allowed for precise ultra-sensitive measurements by MRI machines. It could also help develop sensors that detect and measure faint changes in things unseen to the naked eye, such as magnetic fields. The reward for their work? Lifetime prestige and a combined cash prize of about $1.2 million. Investors are flocking to one of the oldest traded commodities, gold. Futures of the precious metal reached an all-time high today, passing $4,000 per troy ounce. Gold futures are up about 50% since the start of the year, when futures were trading at around $2,600 per troy ounce. An uncertain market due to tariffs and trade wars usually leads to investors buying up metals, an asset that's a tangible safe haven. A popular Los Angeles sneaker store where famous streamers and athletes shop is speaking out after the owner was arrested during a police raid this week. The popular Melrose Avenue business Cool Kicks LA said in an Instagram post that it has no reason to believe a small allotment of Nike sneakers it received was stolen. Police say 33-year-old Adil Shams is facing a felony charge. He and some of the staff were taken into custody on Friday for allegedly receiving stolen property. Police said the 2,100 pairs and 150 cartons of sneakers were stolen off of trains. Shams has since been released from custody and is due in court later this month. She's a comedian, actress, talk show host. Now she's adding author to her resume. Sherri Shepard is releasing her first children's book, The Sunshine Queens, following a group of friends who overcome challenges and learn the importance of cheering each other on. Welcome to the show, Sherri Shepard.
Hi, Lindsay.
So you had me on your show when I was talking about one of my books.
Yes.
So now this is your first children's book. Welcome. The water is warm. As if you're not busy enough. What made you decide, you know what, I got to do one other thing and become a children's book author?
You know, it's funny. I had all of these stories in my head about my girlfriends as an adult. I literally would not be where I am were it not for the women, my queens in my life who brought my sunshine. And, you know, I decided to make these stories palatable for young girls. In this climate, there are so many girls who are dealing with low self-esteem, isolation, not knowing their power. And I wanted them to know that you can try and do things by yourself, but when you have your girlfriends around, you're so much stronger and you can accomplish pretty much anything and get through obstacles.
Where did the title come from, The Sunshine Queens?
You know, because everybody calls me Sunshine. So it actually comes from me because I swim in the lane of, if there's something bad that is happening, I'm the one that is going to brighten your day, make you laugh, make you go, girl, let me wipe up the tears. So I'm the sunshine, but the rest are like the queens in my life. So I decided to call it The Sunshine Queen.
So you just got this year a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I'm getting it. It's coming in the next couple months.
So the announcement that you were going to get it. What went through your mind when it was like, that's going to be me?
You know, I cried because I've been in this business over 30 years, and I think a lot of people just know me as a talk show host. But I've been acting, I've been doing stand-up comedy, TV, film, and writing other books. The acknowledgement by my peers of the hard work that I have done over decades, it's right there. So, you know, I'm like, I used to walk, when I didn't have a place to live, and I would just ride the bus all day, I would walk on Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard, and I would look at these stars and I'd go, wow, I'd like to get one of these one day. When I was a struggling stand-up comic, and I would always walk and look at the stars, and I get one myself.
What a full circle moment.
Yes,
we love to hear that. And congratulations as well, because this November, your show is about to hit its 500th episode.
Linsey, I know. It's surreal. This is truly a dream come true. And I was blessed to get it at 54 years old, which is pretty much unheard of, you know, and I used to dream about this when I was a young girl, and I had my dolls around, and I would have the toilet paper rolls or the paper towel rolls, and I'd say to my Barbie, you remember you pull her hair, my little baby that away, and I go, what do you think? And I'd just be talking, and I used to think, and then I saw a lady like Oprah Winfrey who looked like me, and I said, I want to do that.
Yeah. First of all, whatever energy pill you're taking, you need to sell that, market that. But I say that and then ask this other question. Is there anything else out there that you're dreaming about? Anything, any doors that you haven't quite knocked or opened yet?
Yes, I want to write some more books.
Okay.
I'm working on a romance novel right now. Of course, I would love to go back and do my acting. You know, you were talking about the movie Straw. Sure. I would love to show people my acting chops. You know,
which you showcased. You could do it all. That's what we were saying beforehand. Is the range that you showed in Shaw and as a comedic actress as well. You can do it all.
This season I just want to do things that scare me, and there's a lot of things that scare me, but I really want to try them. It's, you know, I got more days behind me than I do in front of me, and I want to do more things that scare me, because I know that young women are looking at you, they're looking at me, and they're going, I want to do that. And I want to show them that it's so possible, because if you can get on the other side of fear, that is where every blessing and every open door lies.
Amen. All right, we got a sermon on a Sunday morning on a Tuesday night. All right, Sherri Shepard, thank you so much for coming on the show. And you can buy The Sunshine Queens wherever you purchase your books. That is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.